commission has to get involved.
Right.
Yeah, I heard that. Has that ever come up in all your time and doing this kind of nonsense?
It comes up constantly.
Does it? Okay. I didn't know. I thought maybe I had imagined.
No, you're right.
Somebody tried.
All right, I'll call the Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission to order. In the absence of either Ryan or Joe, I'll take the attendance. I'm here. Ryan Allard is not here. Joe Hammer is not here. Tom Dean.
Here.
All right.
It's just in time.
Dave Drake.
Here.
David Edwards.
Here.
Tony Hamicki.
Here.
Jim Hughes. No. George Oikel.
Here.
Joe Riccolani.
Here.
Pete Lambruni.
Here.
Paul Thompson. So that's, okay, Joe is here. All right, so that's 4, 6, 8, 9. Everybody is seated. We have one public hearing and one site plan application. For the public hearing, the way we work it is the applicant comes up, identifies themselves by name and address for the record, makes a presentation as to what it is they'd like to do. There may be some back and forth questions from the commission. Once that's over with, we open it up to anybody in the public that wishes to comment on the application. When that's done, we invite the applicant to come back up, potentially respond to any comments from the public, answer any additional questions from the commission. If at that point we believe we have enough information to make a decision on the application, we'll close the hearing, have deliberations, and vote. If during the public hearing we realize there are open issues or additional information that we need or questions that can't be answered, we may continue the hearing to our next meeting. But in either case, you'll know what's going on while it's happening here. First item, 3-1, public hearing 217724Z regarding 1000 Silas Deane. We're continuing that to June 18th. That hearing is not yet open. Next item, 3.2, public hearing 218524Z, Leigh and Betty Standish, seeking a special permit in accordance with section 36E1, accessory buildings and structures of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations, to convert an office to a guest house at 280 Hartford Avenue. And I invite the applicant to please come up and use the microphone, identify yourself, and explain what it is you'd like to do.
Okay, thank you. Leigh and Betty Standish, 278 Hartford Avenue. This is about 280 Hartford Avenue. Thank you for taking this application tonight. Leigh and I have been asked to apply for a zoning approval for a guest house for the brick structure on our property with the address of 280 Hartford Avenue. Exhibit A is the town map, and it shows the very rectangular piece of property that borders Hartford Avenue in the Cove, and the square in the middle is the brick building. It's halfway on the property. It's one of many structures, barns, etc. It was the only one that survived because it's brick. The others were wood, and they either fell or burned. So the history is that we purchased the property in 1987. The house had two other structures, a small cottage, which is in the northwest corner of the property. They could not sell it separately because there's not enough frontage on the street. And a dilapidated building, which was the brick building, which was hardly visible except in wintertime because it was covered with trees. Exhibit B is the photos that I had taken back then. The first one shows the west side view of the structure with all the trees, and this is the east side view with the bricks crumbling. The last one is of the buttressing that we did to hold up the brick because it collapsing. Yes?
Since I went down there today, and I saw you and went out there, those pictures are deceiving to me because those show a lot of trees around them, right?
Yes.
And they're not there anymore.
We took down over 200 trees.
Hmm?
We took down over 200
Oh, okay.
trees, yeah.
Yeah, she said that was the condition when they bought it.
That's the condition when they bought it.
Right, yeah.
Why do I want to know that?
They want to tell us that. We'll listen to anything they want to tell us.
Okay, as an aside, Exhibit C, the other photo, when we go inside the building back then, there were 2 rooms upstairs. This is the trees growing into the structure, and the 2 rooms here, you could sort of see, it was dark, no lights, the light coming in through the window. You could see furniture, so somebody was living in there. And the last image was mattresses downstairs. So they were really living down there. And I remember bedroom wallpaper upstairs. It was a very scary to be in there because it wasn't stable. Okay, got that. We thought to renovate the structure into our office space. I thought we were crazy, and we were. However, we had to get a variance for that purpose as it was zoned residential agricultural. With approval from the TPZ at great expense, we saved a historic building on the cove. Local historian Ellen Wolf had said that it was most likely used for an ice house. We moved our business into the renovated brick building in 1989 as an owner-occupied business. Exhibit D shows the variance that approved by this group. The renovated building was within the same footprint as the original structure. In 2016, Leigh had a medical event and began to work from the house. I continued to work from 280 Hartford Avenue by myself, but moved into the house as well. And the office sat empty for a few years. We let a neighbor use it for her counseling business, which is very quiet. One at a time. We received a stop and desist from the town that we could not do this in 2019. As we were continuing to pay for taxes on this property and commercial utility bills, we had great hesitation on converting the building to residential. We were told that we could not rent it out as a commercial structure, that the only thing it could be is a residential. Okay. It would be very expensive, but we understood that was the only thing that could happen. In 2022, we put in a permeable driveway down to the building with some parking spots. There are 2 parking spots. The yacht club, which had previously allowed us to use their driveway to access the building, at that point disallowed that ability. We also rebuilt the deck in the back of the old wood deck had become unstable. In 2023, we began the process of renovating our old office into residential. The renovation would include 2 bedrooms upstairs, a full bath, and a kitchen downstairs. It had the same footprint as the office building. And I have the layout. Where is it? Do you have it? Oh, here. Yeah. The layout of the structure is the left 2 were the previous, and then the right 2 is the present with the 2 bedrooms and the kitchen area and a full bath upstairs. Our GC received building permits from the town for various steps along the way. Exhibit F, I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 permits. When we went to the bank for a home equity loan last month, we were shocked that they declined to approve it. We have owned the property outright for 25 years. They said the town did not approve of a residential building there despite the intervening building permits. After inspection by the town assessor, we were told the building could only be a guest house if we applied to TPZ. Thus, we're asking for approval for a guest house at 280 Hartford Avenue. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Does anyone have any, Joe?
Hi, just wondering what type of, tenant or person you would plan to put in the house, to use it?
We have not decided yet, but the only way it can be occupied is if it was a guest house, according to the town assessor.
Okay.
I don't know, is that true? Is that correct?
I don't know, I guess I was also thinking, I don't know if there's any particular definition or restrictions on guest house use in our zoning regs.
Yeah, so our regulations say a guest house can be used for guests of the property, family members, or, how do we exactly phrase it? Just pull up the definition here.
Not to interrupt you, but this is not going to be a rental house then? Or is that the same?
Like an Airbnb or Verbo?
So one of my recommended conditions is that it not be used for an Airbnb.
That's short term.
Can a guest house be rented?
It can.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So did you see the planner's draft condition where I think he said not to be used as an Airbnb and maybe rented, but minimum lease term of 12 months, I believe is what you suggested?
Yeah, that was my suggestion, but it's up for you guys to debate.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I did not see that.
Okay. But, all right, I'm good for now.
Okay. Peter?
So back on this question of what you intend to use it as, it's not clear to me what that is. And the town is suggesting that you don't use it as an Airbnb. Did you have intention to use it as an Airbnb?
Like I said, we didn't really decide. It was sitting empty. We're paying taxes on it, commercial utility bills. We can't tear it down. It's like almost a burden for us. So we spent a great deal of money coming down the road the way we have to convert it to something that the town told us we could do.
But what's your intention?
We have not actually decided, because it's dependent on what you folks, the designation of guest house does not say in the town regs that it cannot be an Airbnb, let's put it that way.
I think Betty would be more inclined to enter that ID. I'm not real keen on that because you have to constantly vet tenants and clean up after each one of them and all that. I prefer to find somebody who wants to come in and stay there. And, so that would be my best case, but I would like to leave any options open that we may in case circumstances somehow change. And my health is not as, the reason I no longer sit where you sit is because I had a stroke and I knew that I couldn't serve the town as well as I could before I had that stroke. So I resigned from the commission and no longer serve here, but watch out because I might come back because I'm feeling much better now.
But I guess, let me just ask this in this way. Would it be an imposition on you if we put a condition that you cannot use it as an Airbnb?
There is an Airbnb on our street already. There is a compound. The George family has a compound with several structures on their property, on our street. So I don't know why you would put that restriction on us. Not that, because it's going to be going on into the future, and whoever gets the property after us has to live with that. So I think that's a restriction that's not fair.
I'm assuming we do not have a general Airbnb ordinance in town, right? Okay. We don't have an Airbnb. Some towns are, I think, beginning to adopt ordinances that deal with Airbnbs and require certain kind of permits and so forth, but we don't have that.
Right. That I understand that from Peter Gillespie. I know he's not been here for a while, but that's what he told me.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just trying to make sure that you're comfortable and that we're comfortable that within the scope of our guest house definition, you can do what you want to do, basically.
Frankly, I would love to keep it for the kids, hoping that they would come home, but,
Yeah.
Right? Can I clarify the guest house thing? You said that was for family.
Family,
Rental, I don't know what we call it, guest house. They want a rental, right? That's what you want.
family, guests, domestic service employees, yeah.
Okay, that's not what they want then. You don't want a guest house, you want a rental, right? You want to rent it to somebody for a period of time.
Probably, yes.
Right, I say,
Well, my understanding, though, is that a guest house can be rented.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
the types of folks that can rent it are limited by the definition of what's allowed in a guest house per our regulations.
That's what we were told by,
That's my
Yeah,
understanding.
but
of
then they're limited then.
Excuse me?
Then they're gonna be limited, right?
Then they would be limited to what constitutes a guest
All
pursuant
right,
to
that's why I
our
say,
regulations.
do they really want a guest house? And but that's what they asked for, I guess, so.
Well, I
But
think,
there's a threshold question,
Right.
you know, so prior to that, and that is, can we do anything else but, but allow it as a guest house?
It might help to, and Tom, your point is right on, so it might help to sort of explain some of this. So this property is very, very unique in that it already has a two-family house and a cottage on it. So while it's in a single-family zone, there's already technically 3 residences on the property. So we can't allow any more residences either by an accessory dwelling unit or, just another addition. So when we were trying to figure out how we can get this moving, the guest house is the best option
Okay,
here.
fair enough, that's good enough.
You can't, given the size of the lot, you can't allow 3 separate dwelling buildings? I mean,
Correct, because it's single-family residential. So we would essentially be adding a 4th residence in a single-family zone, which we can't do at a staff level.
I guess I'm just questioning whether single-family means more per structure than per lot, technically, if there's separation. But, if there's separate structures, if you could argue.
I think under our zoning regulations, you could only pull that off as an ADU,
Okay,
What
okay.
does that mean?
an accessory dwelling unit, but they already have one.
So, Justin, just to clarify, the reason you're suggesting to put a no on an Airbnb use is because it doesn't fit the guest house definition? Because, these are strangers, these are not gonna be
Right.
guests, they're gonna
Right.
be everyday strangers. So-
It sort of helps to clarify that a bit, yeah. Now, that's just a suggested condition. You could eliminate that condition if you wanted. That's within your power to do.
But
But
if we do that and allow strangers to rent it, does it invalidate the description of what they can do? That's what I'm confused here,
yeah,
Are
it's,
you gonna get after them because they got strangers going in even after we approve this? This is what I'm trying to figure out.
yeah, if it's a long-term lease, we're never gonna know. You know what I mean? If they have different people coming into the house every weekend and there's parties and the typical associations with Airbnbs, we'll find out about it. If it's a long-term lease, we're not gonna do a blood check to see if it's related or not,
Yeah, I guess not to speak for you, but it was basically to try to allow this to happen in a way that minimizes the impact on the neighborhood.
Right.
And my understanding is the condition that you're suggesting, is, basically makes clear what is already inherent in the definition of guest house.
Right.
Right. But
George?
I was down there today, and I was impressed with the location, of course, and what they have there, and what they've been paying taxes on, and how they've kept this property up. I was amazed with the quality of the structure and what they've done to it, and that they're paying taxes on this all the time. So I think we ought to try to make it so that they can utilize it in a sensible manner, and I hope we achieve that this evening. I was impressed with the whole site. Of course, that's one of the most beautiful locations in town, so, being next to the cove. And, some of the pictures in here that we have really don't describe it, because the trees and stuff that you show in here on some of these older renderings don't exist. It's cleared off around it now, and it's maintained beautifully inside the structure, and I was quite impressed with it.
Tony?
Justin, can you tell us what the zone is? Is it a 1 acre zone?
It's a quarter-acre zone.
Quarter acre zone?
Single family.
And we have 1.59 acres?
Correct.
To satisfy all these units?
Right.
and it satisfies the sidelines and setback requirements?
It does. So that's another good thing to point out, is that guest houses require pretty restrictive setbacks. They have to be 100 feet from the street line, 25 feet from the side property lines. Luckily, this building meets that. So it worked out very well in that sense. One thing to add too is, as the applicant mentioned, the ZBA had allowed them to have this as an office building for the tenants. That was back in the 80s. Back in 2019, they came in to ask for it to be allowed to be used by a different neighbor or a different, tenant. The ZBA denied that, and since the applicant is no longer going to be using it as their office, the structure is very limited with what can be done without some sort of approval. So,
It has city sewer
Yes,
and city water,
yes,
utilities, the electricity?
yes, we pay for it, yes.
So is there a sub-panel in that to satisfy the house, separate from the
Yes,
main panel? And how many bedrooms will you have?
Two.
Let's see, 2 bedroom. How many square feet?
oof. How many square feet is it? I'm really bad with square feet, sorry.
Reasonable to satisfy the two-bedroom unit?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Quarter acre lot with over, 1.59 acres of land. I think that's something to be said. There's a lot of room here in this parcel.
Dave?
But the
Other Dave.
definition we're using with them for a guest house, it is no different than if another person comes in tomorrow and says, I want to put a guest house. It's not going to change our guest house definition.
correct. It won't change the definition. I would say 95% of cases, you'd be able to allow it as an accessory dwelling unit. The only reason we can't here is because there already is one. So that's the holdup with this.
I just want to back up what George said. I've been in the office building. This building's no slouch. This is a pretty nice spot, yeah. This was done right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's not a shack in the back by any means. Yeah.
No.
And I guess I would just note, there were only letters of support in the file, and given that you, in theory, if you could design a subdivision, you could fit 4, maybe more than 4 units in total on this property. So it seems like it's well sheltered, it's set back, and you could also argue that it's less intense in some ways than a business use might have been under the old variance, depending on how many people were coming in and out to visit the business. So I think all of that is positive, but just sort of want to make sure they understand and hopefully are comfortable of what they can do going forward, and that we can interpret this in a way that allows them to do that.
Right, George?
Yeah, sometimes you get concerned with an area. Well, my question is, where do the sewer lines run down in there? Do they come from the street?
Yeah, it comes down to
that?
the street, yeah. Yeah, I could show you the thing, yeah.
We have an
How does
injector
it
pump
happen?
that pumps up to the street
We're MDC.
into
Yeah.
the city
You
sewer.
have to pump it up.
They do?
They do, yeah.
Where's the pump station?
It's manual.
I'm confused.
You should see my left arm.
He has to get a bucket and every once in a while and walk up the hill?
Fortunately, we've flipped
Just
the
have to
switch.
have the pump,
Off it
that's
goes.
all.
I know, I'm sorry, but I didn't see it as that, but
Okay.
it's a beautiful
This,
property. Go ahead.
this confusion about a guest house is trying to be well thought through by us. Even the letters refer to guest house for family and friends. Even people that supported this are thinking that this is a family and friends affair, not an Airbnb or, strangers. So it's a little confusing, this whole thing.
Tom?
I just have a comment to make. I think, I'd certainly want to have the commission rule favorably upon this application. I think the contributions of, the current owners to the community at large, and particularly the care that they have made on this property with respect to historic preservation in an historic zone need to be, recognized for the contributions to the welfare and the best interests of the citizens of this town. And, I, from my understanding of, of what the commission can do with respect to the laws and regulations, is that the most we can do is to allow it as a guest house. And since, there's the issue of the Airbnb matter, I tend to favor making explicit the condition that the town, that our town planner has rendered in his opinion. But I'd also hope that at some point in time, in an expedient fashion as possible, that the town would address regulations to deal with the Airbnb situations, perhaps allow such kinds of uses as a license rather than, as a special use permit or that sort of thing. And I think that would be, a much better way of dealing with the issue rather than having something that it's an Airbnb situation that runs with the land. And I also would not like to use the term Airbnb in any language that we adopt. I would much prefer the terminology as is stated in the recommendation of, quote, short-term rental, end quote. And short-term rental would be something that is not less than 12 months. And I tend to think that is the most reasonable and expeditious and just thing that we can do at this point in time. Thanks very much.
All right. Does anyone else have anything before I open it up to the public?
My other question, following up on what Tom was saying, is that if we restrict this one unit to not having VRBOs or Airbnbs, are we also restricting the other 3 units? Why would we choose one and not the others? Just because this is part of the application process and we have the prerogative to do that?
Yeah, and again, it sort of helps to, with the way we explain guest houses, it kind of enforces that, because there's really no other way for us to be able to do
Okay,
that.
it's truly in that definition.
Right.
Could we just ask you who occupies the 3 existing residential units?
We are in majority of the house with the wraparound porch. When we bought the house, there was a small in-law apartment to the right. In-laws lived in. We didn't need that space. We could have converted it into one house, but we left it and we did rent it out. And then the little white cottage is rented out.
When my family first was there, my great-grandfather was in the larger portion, and my father and his bride were in the in-law apartment. So it was an apartment for our family.
Right.
And I do want to say that restricting rentals to more than, what did you say, a year or something, is kind of a hardship, because if, like, one of our kids want to come and stay with us for 6 months, that's not allowed? I mean, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know. Are they 2 separate issues? I think if it's family, under our guest house regulation, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, without restriction. If it's family or friends or relatives, I guess the way I am reading that, and I think your suggestion was more in the context of if it's being rented to somebody, right?
Right, a third party kind of situation.
Right.
Third party, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
No, at this point, I think I'll just open it up to the public and see if anybody else has anything they want to say, and then, once
you for
that's over, we'll
consideration.
call you back up.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody in the public that wants to comment on this application?
You? Go ahead. I'll say something.
All right. I don't know if you were here for the pre-recorded speech, but just give us your name and address for the record when you come up, please.
My name is James Campbell, and I live at 305 Hartford Avenue. I'm neighbors of Betty and Mr. Standish. And, I'm not really opposed to the application. I think that, they have done some decent work on the house, and it probably stands alone. And would probably benefit by having people that would stay there, but I really think that I would agree with the town and say that, if you're going to turn it over, they should turn it over on like at least some kind of a lease that's at least 6 or greater months than just, different people. Because you have this thing across the street right now that is an Airbnb right now, and, there's all kinds of different people going in and out, and I guess it doesn't really impact me, but it's a little unsettling. You never know who's coming and going, and they're going to be going down that driveway that they built, and I don't have a problem with that either. I just feel like it's a neighborhood, it's not a commerce neighborhood. We moved to the old town because it's the old town. It should retain the value of the old town of, people that live in the community, not, passersby. It's just my opinion, But I agree, they've done a great job. They're decent people, and, they're not really trying to look for anything exceptional from the town, it seems like. It just seems like that they should be required to do a decent lease on the place if they're going to lease it out, I think. That's all I got to say.
All right, thanks very much.
And the Georges occupy their house, all those dwellings, they don't rent them out. Right?
Anybody else in the public want to comment on this application? Sure, come on up, please.
Oh, this is rather terrifying. Hello, my husband and I moved in last year to 305 Hartford, and I guess this... I'm at 305. 304, here we are. Hello, neighbor. You can tell it's been a year. I got the nerves, so I'm like, where am I? So actually, that means we're next to... Yeah. Yeah. Are you the one with the black dog? Kind of black. Okay, all right, well, there we go. So,
could you give us your name and address?
Hi!
It's not Jamie Campbell, I know that, but...
I'm Aversa Sheldon. I'm married to Alex Greeno. We are at 304 Hartford Avenue, where Gail and Roger Fabian used to live. So we moved to Wethersfield specifically because I'm a historian. His mom works with historic preservation. I get hives whenever I see invasive plants, and I'm constantly really trying to preserve the historic things. I've spent so many hours looking at historic colors to repaint the house, from Historic Preservation New England, and I really love Wethersfield for the character that you guys have preserved in it. It's amazing. So I sympathize and empathize with the desire to not turn the area into a major sort of commercial district. I know that Airbnbs are, in some areas, are often sort of hollow out downtowns, right, where instead of having residential living in a sort of mixed-use capacity, I've seen this in other places, it goes that way. But Hartford Avenue so far doesn't seem quite a downtown that's going to be hollowed out. And if you have a place that already has 12-month tenants, then it's already a certain type of crowded. And I'm sort of intrigued at the idea that you see 12 months as a short-term lease, because for me that would be the sort of thing that would prevent, my mom was at odds for a few months while between moving houses, right? And so is she going to try to sign a 12-month lease because she declined to stay in our dinky condo that we had before 304? You need these sort of medium places. So I think a 12-month limitation is a bit stringent. I do agree that sometimes the Airbnb can feel a little bit stressful. It abuts our driveway, and so it's always a sort of fun surprise to see what sort of cars we're sharing our driveway with. But that's not going to be a problem for Betty and Leigh because it's down quite a ways, and so I can't see how that would cause any sort of interference. So especially given that when we talked at the Historical Society annual dinner, Betty mentioned it was a guest house, and so I think, like, does this word mean what I think it means? And you look it up in Oxford, and it's a place that has rented rooms, okay, right? Or it's a synonym in Merriam-Webster for a boarding house. So that rather does imply turnover. So we had to think about it, and we thought that the turnover was rather implied by what the town suggested, because otherwise, if it's your man staying in back, I wouldn't call it a guest house. That's an in-law unit. So yes, I hope that might clarify some things for you all in terms of a similar sort of thing down the street. We have similar concerns, but we're coming out on sort of the opposite side, where I think having a Airbnb, which can be done judiciously, and perhaps with not like weekend ragers, but if you do it for a longer period of weeks, then it becomes less scary, I suppose. I think we'd be we're for it and not indisposed at all. So, yes. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else? If not, I would just note for the record that we received correspondence from Stephen Shillowells, who live on Hartford Avenue, Andrew Adel, 53 Desmond Drive, Doug and Virginia Buck, 411 Hartford Avenue, Ben and Valeda Raganese, 298 Hartford Avenue, Melinda Robideau, resident of the town of Wethersfield but doesn't identify an address, Amy Woodorf, Executive Director of the Wethersfield Historical Society, and Elaine Cahill, 292 Hartford Avenue, all in favor of the application. Do you want to come back up so that we can see if the commission has any other questions, or if you have any follow-up thoughts or comments based on the public testimony?
I don't have any further comments. I think Aversa made a very good point about guest house. I didn't really fully understand the guest house thing, but when Charles Morris came to the property, he said that was the only thing it could be there, which I think that if you're putting the stipulation that it has to be rented out for 12 months, it should just be a residence. I mean, it's just, I don't think we would let wild partiers use the place. In fact, the notion of the appeal of a short-term thing for friends and family or whatever is that we get to use it because the view is so awesome back there. We can have I could think of a lot of meetings I could have there in that open space. But that aside, yeah, I think you have to think hard about that. If I don't understand why we need to call it a guest house, why it can't just be a residence, which is Zone 4, and which was suggested to us back in 2019 that it can be.
So an address with a separate residence. But we defer to the commission's decision in regard to what it needs to defined as, and we'll conform to that. We're only thinking that in the future, when we passed on or the next owner comes in, perhaps a little more flexibility might be more appropriate for them.
All right. Yeah, I think, just kind of taking what's been said by staff, it seems that, given the number of structures and dwelling units on the site already, while guest house may not be the ideal, the perfect, or the most accurate description of it, it's essentially the only one that we can approve that will allow you to keep it as a residential structure.
Okay, then certainly we would defer to that.
Tom?
Yes, I would also like to comment, particularly with regards to Mrs. Standish's concerns about being limited by the definition of guest house. that it is really quite expansive in terms of the people, the types of people that can be situated there. Because for, folks that are our relatives, friends, real guests, that sort of thing, there is no term limit. So you have a great deal of flexibility in terms of, who does constitute one of these, identified permissible classes. So the only one that would be, that would constitute a problem would be an entity that is a perfect stranger. And in that way, that the definition, the inherent definition of what constitutes, guest house occupancy, basically does not include someone that's going to be essentially transient there. And therefore, it promotes long-term occupancy by someone that is a stranger. And that's inherent in the definition of guest house. What the suggestion of the town planner is that we basically clarify that so that for both your protection and the town's protection, you have a definition of what constitutes a short-term occupancy built into the approval.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the only real issue that we are wrestling with or can wrestle with, because my sense is that we would approve this as a guest house occupancy as per your application.
If I could answer you, I can promise you that we are going to properly vet anyone who we permit to occupy that facility for our own safety, for our neighbors, and for the town's safety. We are, of course, going to be very careful about who we rent to. So I think that we can address that concern for you.
And we appreciate that, and I think knowing, who you are and how you take care of your property, I would expect that you would be highly selective. I think part of what we're balancing is this approval runs with the property into the future, so we don't know who we'd be dealing with. But just 2 quick points. If they wanted to be out of the guest house classification and free to have it as a standalone or whatever, I guess, would a use variance be a potential procedure for that through the Zoning Board of Appeals to have even more flexibility?
I mean, that's the only thing I could think of.
Right. And so that might be, regardless of tonight, I guess that might be something, if you decided at some point, that made sense for you. And I guess my perception, I'm not...
It is a large property, and of course, we never considered subdividing.
Right. But I think
those are options such as that, and as we stand, we prefer to keep it in the family, so to speak.
Understood. I guess my only point was the ZBA, through some type of variance, might be able to give you a broader scope than what our regulations allow us to do. So just something to
We appreciate your
think
efforts.
about.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate your comment.
And I would imagine in a situation like this where neighbors are supportive, if anything, that would go into the mix. But, I guess before we close this, from our standpoint, I think we need to discuss whether any condition is needed at all, or whether it's just approved as submitted, right? That we'll have to debate that. Length of time, and any of those items.
I think that's really the only issue we've got.
Right.
Anything else? Yeah, Peter.
Just on length of time, would it be appropriate to put a condition that anything we approve is valid for the time that they own the property?
No.
But doesn't carry? Can you do that? You can't do that?
No.
Why do you want to do that?
Well, it would be ideal if you could do that, but you can't.
Yeah, I think it would be ideal if we could do that, because I trust them to do it what they say they do.
I
I'm not sure if I could trust somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a...
Peter, can you trust us that we'll only sell it to somebody that we feel comfortable with?
Yeah, but you never, you never know, you never know anybody that
We're
takes...
getting quality
But that's
people.
not possible, right?
No.
No, okay.
All right, anything else before we close the hearing? If not, somebody want to make a motion to close the hearing?
So made.
Second?
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? All right.
Yeah.
Someone want to make a motion on the application itself to kick off discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve their seeking of a special permit in accordance with Section 5(2)(d)(2) for
361. They don't want to have a warehouse.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong one here. Very true.
185.
3.6E1 accessory building and structures to convert an office guest house at 280 Hartford Avenue. And I don't think that, I want to see a condition on it. I just think we should just respect that we're allowing them to do a guest house and just trust them to do it.
I agree.
That's what I think should be the case. That's my motion.
I have no problem
Second.
with that either.
All right, motion made by Peter, seconded by George. Discussion. Yeah, I guess the one thing I wanted to say is that it's sort of ironic that we've essentially come full circle, that it appeared by what was left in the derelict building that it had been used for a residential purpose. They had to jump through hoops to get approval from the ZBA to use it as an office. They spent a lot of money turning it into an office with an illegal condition that it could only be used by them as an office.
Right.
30 years later, circumstances intervene, they want to use it as an office for somebody else, and they say no, and now they're having to jump through hoops to turn it back into residential in the first place, and we're trying to, fit the square peg in the tiny square hole of guest house and, allow it to basically be what it had been.
Are you saying that we shouldn't allow the ZBA to do their thing at all?
No, I'm
I
not,
kind of think that way.
no, I'm not
But
speaking
maybe,
at all about the ZBA.
I don't.
No, I'm just basically saying that, we took the long way around to get back to where it
Yeah,
was.
That's true, you're right, Rich.
Do we want it to look like this when he's done? Like it was?
Yeah, I want the buttressing 2x4s all over the outside of it.
Looks like a cathedral.
No, it's it's the kind of thing that I think people would want to pay to live in. And if you can get your kids to come back, that's a bonus, so. All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, congratulations. All right, next item, which is not a public hearing.
I'll be happy to take that in this evening. I think I still have my name tag.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Application 218624Z, Gianna Aiezza, P.E., seeking a site plan approval in accordance with Section 52H1, permitted principal uses of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for the installation of 2 biodiesel tanks to an existing bulk storage facility at 50 Burbank Road. Is that you?
All right. My name is Justin Manchester. I'm the project manager for Buckeye Partners, here representing the company for this particular project. We have an existing bio injection system at the terminal to facilitate Connecticut's mandate for minimum 5% bio into heating oil at the terminal. That mandate went into effect in 2020, July 2020. The mandate has a ratcheting clause, so in July of 2025, that ratchets up to 10% minimum bio in heating oil. That particular terminal has a lot of top-loading pedal trucks that deliver home heating oil to a lot of the local homes in the community, and that bio needs to be in that home heating oil per the Connecticut mandate. In order to meet that additional ratcheting up of a minimum 10% versus 5%, we need additional bio storage capacity at the terminal to keep up with the demand and keep up with the community need for home heating oil. So the request is for the 2 additional tanks to tie into the existing system to essentially triple the capacity and allow us to keep up with that minimum injection to feed the community.
How big are these? And they're right behind your building that you manage your project with, right?
Correct.
But how big are they? And
So they're 13-foot diameter by 40-foot height. And they're not taller than the buildings.
they're not taller than your building or the white building, isn't it?
There's 2 buildings there. There's the electrical building, and then there's the garage that also has the office spaces in it. Yes,
But
sir.
it's going to be right behind your
Correct. So the existing,
building.
correct. The existing tank is 27 feet high. These 2 tanks we're going to install next to that one, and they're all going to be tied together. These 2 will be 40-foot high, which is the height in the in your restrictions. Anything higher than that needed a variance. So we're going to that height, and then it's also not higher than the building, so you won't be able to see it from the street either way.
Yeah, you won't. But when you come into the site, you won't be able to see them. They're going
Correct.
to be behind your building.
Correct. And they're no taller than the existing tanks that are already there.
Mr. Chairman, question for you.
Yes.
I noticed in your application and in the documents submitted with the application that you refer to the contents of these tanks as biodiesel. And that doesn't appear to be totally technically correct. Wouldn't the term be more generic as biofuels?
So this is a semantics thing with the industry. Some people call it bio, some people call it biodiesel, some people call it B99. It's semantics, basically. But it's per NFPA 30, it's a class 3 liquid. It is bio, but depending on who you talk to, it's all the same stuff. It's biodiesel, bio. It can be either soy or animal-based, and those have different chemical characteristics, different cloud points. You have to keep them heated to different levels depending on what their base is. This one in particular is we use the soy product, which has a lower cloud point, but it's all bio. It's just semantics. The chemical characteristics are all the same.
Now, I noticed that in the report from I believe it's the town engineer's report on this, that he referred to an NFPA 30 standard for these fuels. Does that present a problem for you if that's part of the conditions that may be attached to any approval that this commission may render for you?
Oh, not at all. It's designed per NFPA 30. All the setbacks are per NFPA 30.
Okay.
And the existing system is already per that as well. So that's not a problem at all. It's already designed for that.
Thank you.
Dave?
This is a pretty small tank. Are you making this out of stainless steel or steel?
Carbon steel, they will be coated with a Duraplate 235 on the outside, and then they'll have an internal liner of Epifen. And the,
Top on it too?
I'm sorry,
You got a top on it too? Top cover?
oh, yeah, correct. So it's carbon steel all the way around with a cone roof, and then on the top, there will be handrails so that, individuals can get up top for any kind of service. And then the tanks will also be insulated and heated because, again, I mentioned the cloud point. So we have to keep the product heated or else it will cloud. It's like butter on your counter if it gets too.
Why do you coat the inside?
It's an internal liner. It's an industry best practice. So it allows the tank a longer service life for corrosion. So we put an immersion grade, marine immersion grade coating inside the tanks. It's not required. It's a best practice. And it's an Epifen product. So we'll do near white metal blasting on the inside, and then we'll put that coating, and it'll be 3 feet up the
So
shelf.
this thing also covered with diesel all the time. I'm just curious why it would rust, I guess if it's half full for a long period of time.
So inside product tanks, you get settling. So over time, with wherever you get the product from, it's not always clean. And so inside the tank, over time, you'll get debris that'll settle out. And that debris obviously ends up at the bottom. So we put liners, we call them liners, it's that Epiphen product. And that, you go 3 feet up the shell, and then that debris rests on that epoxy-based liner instead of the bare steel. So any potential corrosion is mitigated. So it gives the tank a longer lifetime. You still do the every 10-year out-of-service inspections, and having 3 tanks will allow us to do those inspections at alternate intervals and still maintain our service capability for the community, instead of just right now we have the 1 tank. So if we have to do that inspection on the 1 tank, you guys have no heating oil. So it gives us that flexibility.
The tank bolted down too, so it won't float away?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Peter?
What type of safety equipment, procedures you have? I mean, what if there's a fire on that site? There was a fire on that site, as a matter of fact, years ago. Someone, I don't know if they were killed or seriously injured, and I think the Wethersfield Fire Department, our volunteer, was called upon to help put it out. But what do you do in case of a fire?
So that particular site, the entire terminal does not have gasoline right now. That whole site is only diesel. And then obviously the bio that is there for that. So to answer your question, everything is built, designed, installed per all the NFPA codes, which is all the National Fire Protection codes. So it's all built to those fire protection standards and then obviously approved by the fire chief. These tanks don't require foam chambers and things like that, and we already talked about that with the fire chief when we had our pre-design call, and he already approved the design all per NFPA code. So standard practice is essentially getting in touch with, the fire department, and he does his normal inspections and all that kind of stuff.
So you're saying it's not as flammable as gasoline, so?
Correct. It's essentially treated as diesel, if that makes sense. So diesel, like you can drop a match in a bucket of diesel and it won't catch, right? It's essentially the same thing. The flash point, like I said, it's a class 3 liquid per NFPA 30, so the flash point's greater than 200 degrees. So it's not going to combust. There's not vapors that combust. It's not like gasoline. It's a very different product. It's basically, like I said, it's either animal fat or the soy-based product. So it smells a little funky, but it's not like gas. Yep.
The whole facility, have you gotten rid of all the PFAS stuff, the foam PFAS, like everybody's talking about? I'm not talking about this right there, but the whole facility, you have all the foam gone that does the PFAS, or you still have all that stuff?
My understanding is there isn't any. I don't want to speak incorrectly. I'm not the fire protection engineer for the company. I can certainly follow up with you guys if that's...
I'm just kind of curious on the whole thing.
Yeah, my understanding is there isn't any, but I don't want to speak incorrectly on that.
Joe?
The diameter of the new tank is either 13 or 14, did you say?
13.
13. So out of curiosity, the very big tanks, what are those diameters that are out there now?
Off the top of my head, I think maybe 60 or so, maybe some of the bigger ones. I don't know all of them off the top of my head.
Right, and are they also 40 feet or are they higher?
Nothing is higher than 40 feet, and that's all per your guys' regulation.
Okay.
And these new tanks, again, will not exceed that, again, per your regulation.
Right.
We did not want to seek a special use or anything like that to exceed that.
And last thing, I think you already said that the other existing tanks, none of them are used for gasoline anymore, it's just diesel?
Correct. That terminal in particular does not service gasoline at all, so it's only diesel. And then obviously we have bio and other additives that we put in the diesel.
Yeah.
But there's no gasoline specific base product.
Okay, thank you.
And you have mostly top-loading pedal trucks that you would have show up at your house to fill up your home heating oil tanks.
Yeah.
There's one bottom-loading bay, the rest are top-loading for those pedal trucks.
Okay, thanks.
So that's most of the business.
Anybody else? All right. This is not a public hearing, so if you don't have any other questions, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll take a crack, Mr. Chairman. I would move to approve the application of Buckeye Partners LP for biofuel biodiesel tank installation pursuant to the provisions of section 5.1 parenthesis 5.2.h.1 of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations, subject to and conditioned upon compliance with the recommendations contained in the memorandum dated May 30, 2024, from Lawrence Cupriano, civil engineer, and Derek Greger, town engineer, to wit, the 21 recommendations contained in that memo.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Justin, are you comfortable that all the town engineer comments can be left as a condition and subject to staff review?
Yeah, I talked to the town engineer, and these are pretty minor comments. They're really just like plan notations.
Okay.
So yeah, there's no issue with that.
Okay.
And that was my impression too, that these are largely technical items that largely be required to be put onto the documentations that the applicant will produce at the time of the work that's requested.
Yeah. Yeah, and the applicant committed in their June 3rd letter to do so.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if we got a second.
Was there a second on that?
I think I did.
There we go.
So our
All
call-
set?
Yep.
So we have, just to be clear, so we have conditional approval, and then we'll resubmit the updated drawings.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other business. Next item is the minutes of May 21st, 2024.
Move to approve?
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a modification or correction
Okay.
that I propose on page 3, the resolution or the approval motion that's listed that I had made at that point in time for that application 2183-24Z. I would, these are, it's some technical corrections, nothing substantial. That is, and it goes down to the following conditions that are contained in that motion. It now states that the special use permit not to exceed 2 years, then comma. I would recommend that that be changed from a comma to a period. And then following that, the following sentence be, it now states, in the event the applicant seeks to renew the special use permit, all fees be waived, and in no way does the issuance of a special permit alleviate the applicant to address. And I think there's words that are missing from that after the word alleviate. I would recommend that we insert the following. Alleviate the duty of the applicant to address, rather than simply alleviate the applicant to address, because it doesn't make grammatical sense the way it's stated. So it would read, the issuance of a special permit alleviate the applicant, or alleviate the duty of the applicant to address the issue of the fence in accordance with the citation at the earliest convenience.
Or convenes.
Good catch. Yeah.
All right.
with that, I would hope to hear the mover of the motion to accept those changes.
Yes.
Okay. And who seconded it?
I'll second again.
Okay. All right. Yeah, those changes make sense. Anybody else have any additional comments or questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
I wasn't here also, so.
Peter and Tony abstained. Next item, staff reports and pending applications to be heard.
Just a couple things. So we do have 2 applications coming up for your next meeting. One is the continuation of Raising Cane's. You'll remember that they requested to be tabled until the next meeting, so they had time to address the concerns from the town engineer. So we have talked to them a little bit more. They're working with DOT to try to figure out that weird right turn only situation. So hopefully we'll have some better answers for next time. At this point, we do expect that 1000 Silas Deane will be at your next meeting. We believe they'll be at design review next week. So all goes according to plan, that will be at your next meeting as well.
What's holding that up?
There were a lot of changes that were needed per the town engineer. It was a pretty significant set of revisions that were required. So it's been taking some time. So that's that situation. Next week is the next Plan of Conservation and Development Advisory Committee meeting. So that's going to be next Wednesday at 5:30. And it's going to be right next door in the Town Manager's Conference Room. So those of you who are involved with that, we'll see you there. And then one thing I wanted to bring to your attention and get your thoughts. So the next meeting is June 18th. The following meeting is July 2nd, which is, the holiday week. The town has the 4th and the 5th off for that Thursday and Friday. Currently, we have no applications for that meeting, so I wanted to get your feelings if you just want to cancel that in case we get any in last minute. It's probably a tough week in terms of getting a quorum. I could be wrong.
I make a motion that we cancel the meeting of July 2nd.
Second.
All right, simple. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consider it done.
Maybe now, George, we should consider moving to cancel one of the August meetings. I know we always wait until we get closer to decide, I guess. But
that wouldn't be bad from a staff perspective, because right now we, try to schedule them out and tell applicants when the deadlines are. So if you would like to do that, yeah.
Do you have any, so right now, sitting here today, you have no applications for July or August?
Not at the moment.
Really? None?
What if Amazon calls next week and they want to put a corporate center here in town? They don't want to miss it.
We need it by Labor Day. Yeah.
Needs to be built and occupied.
Because I guess, I don't know, traditionally, didn't we just have one was it one in July and one in August, or just one in August?
Yeah, that was what we traditionally did. And
Yeah.
sometimes they traditionally went until 1,
Right.
2:30, and
Right.
3 in the morning, so it was sort of a trade-off. Did you want to have a week off, or did you want to basically blow a hole in 2 work days after the meeting? So.
Right. I mean, is there still time to make that decision on
Sure.
June 18th?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can decide on the 18th, I guess, and still, give you time to advise and plan.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else anybody has? If not, someone want to make a motion?
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion by Tom, seconded by Peter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
So.
My wife and I